Hello and welcome to Daybreak on Trust Television, reaching you from the nation's capital in Abuja. I am Ayuba Ilya. Thanks so much for joining us on the show.
A lovely morning it is in the nation's capital city. I am Sagir Ibrahim.
Well, today being the 24th of January, the countdown has since begun towards the end of the phasing out, rather, I would say, of the old Naira notes. And the Central Bank of Nigeria is being, moving about different markets and, communities, sensitizing people just to make sure that some people are not left out in the whole thing. But we are seeing quite a lot of things happening regarding this.
Yes, because this January seems to be an interesting one. Reason being that 24th of January, February 25th is the election. So we have basically 30 or 31 days to the election. That is one. Secondly, is 24th of January. So we're entering the end of the month, which means that civil servants as well as workers will be expecting their salaries, which adds pressure, to the exchange of the new Naira notes. Are we going, when we're paid, how will we get our monies, and when we go to the bank to make withdrawals, will this new Naira notes be available? This is aside the fact that, we have traders out there who are bringing their money in droves, carrying it on their heads. I mean, we saw the story from Katsina yesterday. People going to the bank and they can't even deposit their money.
And some people are already rejecting the old notes. In Niger State, I'm seeing a story that says, well, no new Naira notes, no wife for some people.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so a certain family in Niger State rejected the bride price, because it is in old notes, and they decided that, look, we are not giving out our daughter because it's in old notes. Go and get the new notes, and then you get your wife. So
this only adds to the pressure, because I think a lot of Nigerians might not even be aware of how much time they have left. It's just 7 days. And what happens after January 31st? Will these old notes be accepted as legal tender? Where are the new notes? Why isn't anything being said pertaining to why these new notes aren't in circulation as they should be? These are questions that Nigerians have been asking, and the CBN and the government, have not answered.
And I wonder where the missing link is, really, because when you go to the banks, you get old notes. Central Bank will say, well, we've given out these new notes to the banks, and you can get them in the ATMs. What about the people who don't have ATM cards? How do they cope with this? Yesterday, I also understand that there's a program that the CBN is launching that will last for about a week. They call them cash swap. So for people in the rural areas and the rest of them. But, well, I hope that they are able to fast track that, because let's avert any possible crisis that could come with this, because trust me, if it gets to a point where people become desperate, then racketeering will set in. I don't know if that's
when it comes to the issue of money, it's always very important to take it delicately. I mean, on a lighter note, we saw the post on Twitter by a Twitter user who said, you go to the bank to deposit your old note, you go to the ATM and it dispenses the old notes again. So this begs the question, why are they recycling and sending out the old notes when they say they are taking back the old notes, and the new notes seem not to be in circulation? And then the question again of whether the new notes are of quality, because we saw pictures online of I think 1,000 Naira and 500 Naira redesign. The 500 Naira was improperly cut, while as well as the 1,000 Naira note. So it begs the question: is this a rushed process? Really? I mean, in the UK, we see the gradual phasing out of the Queen's notes, in replacement with that of the King's notes. And I think they have until 2025 for that process to be complete. So yes, I understand that they are doing this because of, the 2023 general election, as well as, other issues to bring back money into the economy. That's the money in circulation and all of that. But do we have to rush the process, and at the detriment of whom? Exactly.
So let's leave it there. We'll see more as we progress on the show this morning. Let's take a look at the headlines now. Now, beginning with the first one, it says passengers stranded at Lagos International Airport as NACO embarks on strike.
Also, 2 million displaced by 2022 flood disaster. That's according to NEMA.
Frank Lampard sacked as Everton manager.
And to details now, the Nigerian Aviation Handling Company PLC has embarked on a strike over salary increment, grounding international flights at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport on Monday. In a viral video, several passengers were stranded at the international airport, moving about helplessly with their luggage. The NACO staff members were said to have walked out of the international airport in the early hours of Monday, saying they were on strike. The development grounded both arrival and departure flight schedules, leaving travelers frustrated, and no prior communication was sent to passengers on the strike. Reacting to the development in a tweet, Oluwatosin Oladende, Chief Executive Officer, CEO, Money Africa, said, "Airlines ground handlers on strike at Lagos Airport. No departure check-in and no arrival of flights for now. Departing passengers stranded." NACO provides ground handling, passenger services and other services to several international airlines including Air France KLM, Qatar Airways, Ethiopian Airlines, Delta Airlines, Virgin Atlantic and Turkish Air.
All right. The Director General of the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, Mustafa Ahmed, says the 2,430,445 people were displaced by the 2022 flood disaster that ravaged different parts of the country. He said this at the opening of a one-week strategic executive course for Nigeria emergency management stakeholders in Abuja on Monday. Ahmed said that the capacity building training was expedient at a time when the country was recovering from the impacts of the 2022 flood disaster. He added that the training, which would afford the participants an opportunity to share their experiences, will also provide an opportunity for them to develop a holistic approaches to disaster and crisis management in the country.
And in sports, relegation threatened Everton have sacked manager Frank Lampard after less than a year in charge at the Goodison Park club, British media reported on Monday. The former Chelsea boss was appointed to replace Rafael Benitez in January 2022, but leaves with the side 19th in the table, level on points with bottom club Southampton. In a sign of the turmoil enveloping Everton, club directors were earlier this month ordered to stay away from Goodison Park due to perceived security risks. Everton fell to a damaging 2-0 defeat at fellow strugglers West Ham on Saturday, a 9th loss in their past 12 Premier League matches.
All right, now let's take a look at some of the packages that we have this morning. Few days to the 29 January deadline for the collection of permanent voter cards. Distribution is moving smoothly in Gombe State. Ibrahim Ismail reports that despite an enlightenment campaign by the Independent National Electoral Commission, many Nigerians are not aware where to collect their PVCs. Take a look.
Sunday, the 29th January is the last day for the collection of PVCs. It was initially scheduled to end on January 22nd, but few days to Sunday, it appears some Nigerians in Gombe are not aware of the procedures to get their cards. At a time when the collection process is at ward level, some residents are visiting the local government office of INEC.
And I'm just coming, I saw so many people. I don't even understand what is happening. But from my findings, I was able to get some information. Most people that are here for the ad hoc staff announcements. So I'm still looking around to see the process of the collection.
I escorted with my wife here so that she will also collect her own. Because we were here the same day, I picked my own. So they told her that her own will be ready in 2 weeks' time. So here we are now.
A resident in Shamaki Ward, Gombe, said INEC officials are very punctual at the card pickup point, but the turnout is very low, which can be attributed to ignorance of the collection point. Others attempt to collect by proxy. People should endeavor to collect their PVCs to vote who they want. Without PVC, you don't have the right to raise your voice against bad governance, but with your card, you do have a voice. For Nigerians to exercise their franchise in the 2023 general elections, they must have their permanent voter cards. From Gombe, Ibrahim Ismail reporting. for Trust TV.
Also, residents of Lambarimi, where the 10 megawatt windmill electricity project site located in Katsina State, have lamented the slow pace of work on the project. The windmill electricity power project was initiated and started by President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua's administration to provide 10 megawatts of electricity to Katsina to complement the national grid. Abdullahi Yamadi reports that several unfulfilled promises were made to the people of Katsina State on completion and commissioning of the power project by successive administration. Take a look.
Residents of the community are afraid that another disappointment looms if the project is not completed at the end of the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari in the next couple of months. Even on the 8th of January 2022, the Minister of Power, Engineer Abubakar Aliu, added to numerous assurances by the Buhari-led federal government that the project will be commissioned before the end of its tenure.
There are small things that have been left by the contractor, which we urge them to complete, and this is one of the reasons that I am here to come and see whether they have done them. Like the SCADA, they have brought it, and the other yard that we have been to, the Liafa yard, we have gone there to see the meters that they have installed and other things. Just the icing on the cake to complete the project.
However, residents are now in doubt whether the remaining month of the Buhari administration will make any difference. They also lament the failed promises of successive governments that pledged to complete and put the project to use.
Shekara da shekaru, amma da aikin da gaskiya na gaba yana bayani.
We have been seeing several government delegations coming here and promising the commissioning of the project. Several ministers had promised that the project will be completed within the space of 2 weeks since 2013, but up till now, nothing was done.
Amma dai kamar aikin baban giwa ake, an dai zo wurin aiki ne kawai an lokaci ya kuma an tashi an tashi.
Gaskiya wannan aiki muna kallon shi a lokacin da ya zo wani ci gaba ne.
When the Buhari administration came to power in 2015, all Katsina residents thought their dream will come true. However, the reverse is the case. Our only hope is for the president to remember some of his promises to us and fulfill them.
Muna roƙon kuma gwamnati cewar muna roƙon ta dama a taimaka wannan aikin a ci gaba da yin shi har a samu damar buɗe wannan wuri.
Wannan aiki an yi shi to mu kuma har yanzu dai ba wani ci gaba.
I call on President Muhammadu Buhari to direct a forensic auditing of all the facilities at the project site because many of us are seeing suspicious movements in and around the project site.
Tunda aka hada ta, kaga ko shugaban kasa ko so ɗaya bai taɓa zuwa ba.
Residents here are anxious to see if this project will be commissioned before the Buhari administration winds up on 29th May this year. Abdullahi Ismayamadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
Now, charcoal is often produced by incomplete combustion of plant or animal products and commonly used for outdoor cooking or for industrial application in the form of activated charcoal. Residents of Jos, however, say that they now use charcoal as an alternative to cooking gas, electric cookers or kerosene due to increase in the price. Now, Ado Musa has more details on this.
The use of charcoal for cooking in Nigeria is growing with each passing day, not just in the rural areas, but also in urban centers as the cost of cooking gas continues to rise. According to Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, in one of its 2022 reports, 40 million Nigerians engage directly in fuel wood collection and charcoal production, a development that many say is an indication of increased use of charcoal in the country. Charcoal users in Jos, however, said they used the charcoal because it was less expensive compared to gas or kerosene, adding that they could use it for a longer time before it burns out.
I enjoy using charcoal because it serves different purposes. It is cheaper, and we can't afford to use electric cookers due to the number of electricity units they consume. I use it because of different reasons. It is easier to use and cheaper when compared to others. For people like me that sell food, it is more profitable to use charcoal than gas or kerosene.
Professor Chundu Maina, a consultant at the Department of Community Medicine, Jos University Teaching Hospital, explains how the charcoal can be used if necessary and its likely effects.
In terms of the fact that it has that effect on the respiratory system, and then it has the fact that it generates heat and of course can lead to burns are two of the major issues that we have with charcoal. Even though we know that it is cheap and easily accessible for people to use, so if usually we recommend that people should not even use it at all because of the effects that it has. But if it means that you have to use it, it is recommended that it should be used in an open space. So definitely it's not one of those things that you want to use to warm in an enclosed area, because what happens is that the heat, the smoke, the particulate matter I was talking about, the carbon monoxide and other gases that are being released now concentrate within that place. So you need to use it in where it's properly ventilated.
Although experts have continued to highlight the dangers of using charcoal, people continue to utilize it in their everyday activities. Ado Musa, Trust TV News, Jos.
Well, there you have it. Away from that, now into politics. Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi promises to build a new Nigeria if elected in February. Peter Obi was addressing a mammoth crowd during his campaign rally at the Muhammadu Diko Stadium in Katsina. Take a look.
Peter Obi promises people of Katsina that his administration will, among other programs, introduce policies and programs that will rejuvenate agriculture and solid minerals development. The presidential candidate promised to reopen the nation's land borders to reignite economic activities. The vice presidential candidate Yusuf Baba Ahmad said Labour Party is the only platform that can address numerous challenges retarding the nation's growth. Katsina is a citadel of education. The Labour Party will adopt policies that will ensure free education for all. All sectors of the state economy will be resuscitated and peace will be restored to Katsina and the Northwest region. Once you vote Labour Party, all your challenges will be history. The governorship candidate and other flag bearers from Katsina State expressed optimism that the party will win the elections. The party is for all of us, and let me categorically state here that our candidates in the Labour Party will never let you down. Katsina State has been endowed with good leaders who have contributed towards the development of Nigeria. Please, don't let that get out of your hand. Vote Labour Party from top to bottom.
All compatriots.
Abdullahi Ismayamadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
President Muhammadu Buhari and the All Progressives Congress presidential candidate Bola Tinubu could not address hundreds of party supporters that gathered at the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa Stadium in Bauchi during a campaign rally in the state. The rally, however, witnessed a large turnout of party loyalists from Bauchi. Adamu Imam reports that technical hitch and malfunction of the public address system prevented the duo from addressing the crowd.
The All Progressives Congress presidential campaign rally witnessed a large number of party stalwarts and supporters who turned up to register their support for the presidential candidate of the party, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in his quest to become the next president of the country. National Chairman of the party Abdullahi Adamu, DG Campaign Simon Lalon, and Chairman Progressive Governors Forum Atiku Bagudu of Kebbi State all drummed support for candidates of the party at all levels. Your performance and excellent policies have never been seen before. Major policies that have touched the lives of common man are the reasons this crowd is gathered here to support you and your government. By God's grace, we shall emulate you and apply what we learned during your administration to stem the tide of insecurity in our country. If they give us the mandate by the grace of God, we shall do even better than where we are now. Some supporters of the APC presidential candidate expressed hope that the party will emerge victorious at all levels.
Well, the way I see the people of Bauchi, honestly, I'm so happy. I'm so, we pray for Almighty Allah. Allah should give us a Tinubu as a president, inshallah. We pray for Almighty Allah.
It's a communication error. So this thing will happen anytime, anywhere. So what I only call the people that came to this gathering, they should be calm and wait for 25th February to vote for our leaders as
We urge women to come out en masse to vote the APC from top to bottom. That is what we need to do if we have to get it right.
Dignitaries from the National Assembly and former governors from the Northeast region graced the event and pledged their support for the party. Adam Imam, Trust TV News, Bauchi.
Well, still on politics, students of the University of Abuja on Monday have expressed mixed feelings over their engagement with the presidential candidate of the New Nigeria People's Party, Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, on his agenda for the country. A cross-section who spoke to Trust TV's Shafiu Suleiman shortly after the interface expressed mixed reaction, both satisfaction and reservations, especially on the implementation of the policy initiative. Have a look.
The second engagement series of the University of Abuja with presidential candidates took place right behind me here. And of course, the students had an opportunity to interact freely with the NNPP presidential candidate, Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, who rolled out his plans for the education sector and other sectors of importance to Nigeria ahead of the election, which is scheduled to hold next month. It is left for the students now to decide as to where the pendulum will swing, looking at the direction and inputs and, of course, understanding of the issues by the various candidates that will be engaging them ahead of the election.
So if he's to stick by what he promised us, I think he has his blueprints actually going to create a bright future for Nigeria. That is, if he's not going to recycle the normal status quo of other political candidates. If he stick by what he's saying, Nigeria will actually be better than it is now. So we are just hoping.
The past elections, the presidents too, the candidates, when they were candidates, they were only saying all these things: electricity, poverty, education. But yet, and once they acquire power, this problem keep repeating itself. That's just what I see.
I was expecting him to hammer on what's on climate change. He never mentioned anything on climate change. But I believe that we have been having series of disasters like flooding and other disasters. So I was expecting him to also talk on that. So we see his plan and what he has so we can mitigate all those problems we've had.
What he said made a lot of sense, but I cannot say that I have experienced or witnessed some of the works he did educationally, but I feel like there's a chance that he's a very good leader.
He was able to identify the major challenges that Nigeria as a society is facing, and like it is popularly said, being able to identify your problem is a first step towards solving such problems.
Engagements like this, some will say, especially in a political environment, is very key to shaping the opinions, if you like, of the critical stakeholders in the nation's electoral process. Shafiu Suleiman, Trust TV News, Abuja.
All right, we'll take a short break now, and then when we return, we'll take a look at the stories on the front pages of our newspapers.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence. Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement, terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media. Before you broadcast that false message, think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household on safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dssPR@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
But in a situation where you find that a person look like the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that.
All right, thank you for staying with us. Time for us to take a look at the dailies on Daybreak. Quite a lot of stories this morning, and we'll begin with the Daily Trust newspaper. The lead story here talks about old Naira notes. Nigerians fear massive losses as deadline draws near. It has the riders that says business owners give January 25 deadline. Food prices soar as traders reject old notes. Now there's also another interesting rider, which we earlier mentioned in our opening. Family rejects old notes as bride price. So you may want to take details of that story. It's quite an interesting one. You'll find all the details on page 4 and 20. And then above that, you'd see NPC begins training of 786,741 workers for census on page 32. Excitement as Buhari commissions $1.5 billion Lekki deep sea port on page 3. You also have Ohaneze places 37 million naira bounty on IPOB leader Ekpa. On the pictorial, stranded passengers and striking aviation workers at the international wing of the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Ikeja, in Lagos on Monday. You'd see the pictures there. And then below that, you would see the story that, basically explaining further. It says airlines count losses, passengers stranded as workers ground airports. On page 6, now at the footnote, crowd overwhelms security forces, Tinubu's rally to abrupt end, 662 killed, 2.4 million displaced by flood in 2022, NEMA DG. NIMET recovering, digitizing 130-year-old weather data, and that's on page 23. Now, these are the major stories. Let's not forget that we still have 11 schoolgirls of FGC Breninia Wuri. It's been 588 days still in captivity. One student of Bethel Baptist High School, Kujama, 560 days still in captivity. we call for the release of the abducted.
And we move to the Daily Times newspaper. Starting from above the masthead, we see PDP approaches court to disqualify Tinubu from contesting presidential poll. Also below the masthead, we see Abuja lawyer Okwara challenges Buhari's power to extend IGP Alkali's tenure. Buhari to attend Dakar International Conference on Agriculture. You could find that story on page 3. Also, Ararume's 100 billion naira suit against Buhari. NNPC's 2 SANs walk out on court during hearing. And for the very glaring headline there, I've served Nigerians creditably, says Buhari. A couple of writers underneath says, I have not disappointed anybody. Inaugurates $1.5 billion Lekki Deep Seaport, rice mill, best staff lubricant plant in Lagos. And besides the pictorial, we see energy transition. FG seeks adequate climate finance through African carbon market. And on the footer, how NACO workers strike crippled airlines operations. Find that story on page 4. And that's it for the Daily Times.
All right, now let's take a look at the next paper there. Now we talk about the Leadership newspaper. Now on the Leadership newspaper, the lead story says, more patients at risk as myths drain blood banks. You'd also find other stories above the masthead. Lekki Deep Seaport targets $361 billion revenue, 200,000 jobs. FIRS rakes in 10.1 trillion naira in 2022, sets highest collection record. Esunupe confirms attendance at Leadership Conference. You also find Obi in Katsina vows to tackle poverty. All northern governors are behind Tinubu, says Lalong. $460,000 for feature. Atiku initiates court action against Tinubu. Diphtheria, Kano. 3 others record 123 cases and 38 deaths. These are the major stories on the Leadership newspaper.
And for the Nation newspaper this morning, we remain non-partisan, INEC assures. Electronic transmission stays. That's according to the Independent National Electoral Commission. Beside that, court to DSS charge terrorist negotiator Tukur Mamu. Catch that story on page 5. Also, JAMB registers 92,490 candidates for UTME. FIRS nets highest ever revenue of 10.1 trillion. Catch those stories on page 5 and page 7 respectively. Excessive fasting destroys kidney, liver. NAFDAC warns farmers abducted. NAFDAC warns rather. Another story, farmers abducted in Osun. Interesting. For the banner headline, Buhari's declaration in Bauchi, Tinubu is incoming president. A couple of writers underneath that story. Why North should vote for ex-governor by Lawan Gbajabiamila. PDP abandoned region to Boko Haram. And also COVID-19, incoming travelers to provide vaccination evidence. And underneath that, stranded passengers lament 14-hour flight delay. And also beneath the pictorial, we see $1.5 billion Lekki Deep Seaport will boost economic recovery, says President. And on the footer, gunmen behead council administrator. Ex-Osun Amotekun boss alleges threat to life. And that's all for the Nation newspaper.
All right, on the Punch newspaper this morning, the lead story talks about power outage disrupts APC rally, stops Buhari, Tinubu's speeches. The writer says APC National Working Committee to probe incident says Bauchi rally successful. Buhari supporting Tinubu, direct governors to ensure victory, says Bagudu. You have above the masthead, cash swap, CBN bars Abuja, Lagos, POS operators. Now you have FG forecast fresh flooding in Plateau, Bayelsa, and others. You also have other stories below the pictorial. Lagos project jobs projects jobs as president opens rice mill and seaport. And then below that, Nigerians now have alternative to PDP and APC, says Kwokwo. Our abductors working for highly connected people. FUNAB graduate. You have diphtheria. FG deploys response team as cases rise. So these are the major stories on the Punch this morning.
For the Nigerian News Direct, we start from the very top. FIRS breaks 2021 record, collects 10.1 trillion naira in 2022. Besides that, WHO has not informed us of any deadly Chinese flu, according to the minister. Nigeria hosts Regional Digital Economy Conference. And also, Lekki Deep Seaport, FG targets $360 billion investment as Buhari unveils largest rice mill in Africa. $360 billion investment avenue for economic vitality, employment opportunity, according to NIMASA. And also, we are ready for standard regulations. But that's according to the NPA and the Shapers Council. You see a picture there of President Muhammadu Buhari commissioning some projects in Lagos on Monday. And underneath the pictorial, I have served Nigerians creditably. President Buhari in Bauchi as he campaigns for the APC. And underneath that story, we see a couple others. PMS, amid pricing challenges, Nigerians paid average of 206 naira per litre. That's according to the National Bureau of Statistics. Also, salary increment, aviation workers ground international flight operations. And lastly, curbing indecent dressing on Nigerian campuses through strict regulations, sanctions. That's it for the Nigerian News Direct this morning.
All right. Let's get perspectives on some of these stories. We have our guest reviewer in the studio, Dr. Theophilus Abba. He's the director, Daily Trust Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Thank you, and Happy New Year.
Yeah. Well, it appears this is your first time of joining us.
Here this year, so
Happy New Year indeed.
Welcome to the show once again.
Thank you.
A lot of interesting stories. Today being the 24th, we are counting down to the last day of the use of the old Naira notes. We are phasing it out, as a matter of fact, and quite a lot is being happening, and crises seem to be looming. As a matter of fact, we are hearing that a family is already rejecting the old notes as a bride price somewhere in Niger State. So let's get your take on this fears. Are these legitimate fears?
I think there are legitimate fears concerning the access to the new Naira notes. From a personal experience, yesterday I went to a bank and I wanted to withdraw money. And most of the ATM machines there didn't have cash. And the ones that had cash, about two of them, one was dispensing 200 Naira notes, and you can't withdraw more than 2,000 at once. And then the other ones that had 500 Naira, there was just a long queue. And while we were, on that queue to withdraw, he said temporary out of, unable to dispense cash. Now, people were moving from one ATM machine to another. There we have several banks. So from bank A, you move to bank B, you move to bank C. People are desperate. They want to withdraw cash, and these ATM machines are not dispensing the new Naira notes. Now, then you now talk about, those who do business. There's pressure on Nigerians to dispose of the old Naira notes. We call it old, even though until January 31st, it will still be relevant. And so people are taking old notes to them, and they're saying, look, if I collect these old notes, how am I going to convert them to the new notes? So I am thinking that it is very, very necessary for the CBN to reconsider the January 31st deadline. Because unless the measure is punitive, unless the measure to say, okay, want Nigerians to lose, want Nigerians to lose their cash, unless that is the intention of the new Naira note, then there's no reason why people should be made to suffer, because even the banks, who are supposed to dispense these new naira notes don't do so. As at last week.
Exactly. So you wonder where the missing link is. Is it? Central bank will say, well, we have given out the monies to commercial banks, but if you go to the bank, they tell you
get the old naira notes.
So where is the missing link? What exactly is going on? And let's not forget that rejecting the monies as legal tender before the expiry is illegal, actually, as a matter of fact.
It's illegal, but I think my concern is the relationship between the CBN and the banks. For instance, I understand the CBN is going from state to state and doing swap, naira swap and things like that. There's no way they can, do that satisfactorily.
Exactly.
It is only through these banks. And if these banks don't have enough cash, if they don't have enough, or not cash now, enough new notes, they will not give to customers. So I'm thinking that instead of the CBN, to threaten Nigerians, with, look, you're going to lose your money, they have to, ensure that they cure whatever is the disease between them and the banks. Because these banks are not dispensing these new naira notes. Because I was thinking that they'll flood the ATMs with the new naira notes. So if you go to the bank and you want to withdraw cash, you withdraw the new naira notes. But people are frustrated. I went to up to 4 banks yesterday before I was able to withdraw 10,000. From Bank A, I drove to Bank B. The whole place, there are no naira notes. So, there are no cash in the ATM machines. Now, from what I know, this is not how it is done in other parts of the world. For instance, in the UK, there is a change of the currency because you have a new king.
To the king.
I understand. Yes. And they are already redesigning the currency, and they are already trying to inject the new pounds to the economy. And it will take a long time. It's not something that you do in the space of 1 month, 2 months. They allow this thing to phase out naturally. That means that if you take your cash to the bank, the old notes to the bank, you're going to get new notes.
Okay.
And so you're going to spend the new notes. But in our own case, we say it must be done in 1 month, in 2 months, and if not, you're losing all your money. As if the idea is to make people to lose. I don't know why the CBN is making so much.
This brings me to the question. Nigerian banks are yet to recover from the challenges experienced from the COVID-19 pandemic, because you see, after the pandemic, queues have been lingering in these deposit money banks for the longest time due to a plethora of issues faced by, customers over the years. Till now, if you go to some banks, you still see canopies with people sitting in queues and waiting to, get attended to. Now, that's first. Secondly, don't you think that this is only going to add to the challenge that these banks already face as it is? And finally, is it fair to put this on Nigerians, especially now? We know that the month is about to end, salaries are going to be paid, and we know what happens when it is the end of the month and salaries are paid. There's going to be an influx of people also going to the bank. So if you add this number of people who will be going to make cash withdrawals to the number of people who will be going in droves, to make deposits at the banks, because of course everybody wants, the new notes. Now, don't you think it is going to make an uneven balance and just add so much pressure to the system and would push, the CBN? I don't want to say they would be forced to, move the deadline, but do you foresee that happening?
Well, there is already kind of chaos, There's already chaos as far as accessing these notes is concerned. And I don't really know what has happened. It's either that the CBN did not print enough new naira notes, or perhaps the banks have some technical reasons why they are not picking them up from the CBN. Maybe there are charges they need to pay, or I don't know. I'm not a banker. But the major issue is that, like you mentioned, there is already chaos. People are already feeling the pains.
Panicking.
People are already panicking. There's no access. The new naira notes are not circulating the way we expect it to circulate. And so I'm appealing, let me put it this way, that the CBN has to extend, the deadline. That is number one. Then secondly, the CBN had to evaluate what has happened in the last 1 or 2 months when they talked about, people changing their old naira notes for new. They have to go and evaluate, find out what has happened. They have to review, so that if there are issues, they have to correct them. Because Nigerians must not be made, to suffer because of the inefficiency of the banking sector. You know, if the CBN is not doing the right thing, it has to ensure that it corrects some of it. Because if I have cash, let's assume I have 100,000, and I cannot, I cannot exchange it at the counter, you know, or if I go to the bank and I still withdraw the old Naira note, or if I go to the bank and I cannot withdraw the new Naira note, you know, it will hurt my operation. It will affect what I can do. So maybe in the rural areas they have taken some cash there, but there are so many rural areas that don't have banks. For instance, my own local government, there's no single bank in my local government in Kogi State, where I come from.
I think the Yobe State governor was.
Yeah, there's not even one bank.
Out of 17 local
only
three has banks.
So if there are no banks in that local government, then how would people with cash, who have cash, how would they dispose of? I mean, how would they exchange those cash, the old notes?
How effective would the cash swap? Yesterday they launched something they call the cash swap.
It's too late.
Program.
Yes,
we have barely 7 days to go.
You have a few days to go, and which means that everyone who has cash, because in the rural areas you do business in cash. You know, if I send any money to anybody in the rural area, you just go and you withdraw the money.
So that should have started much earlier.
From a POS, operator, and keeps. Because most of them, the money is not so much, so you need to keep that cash to be able to run your life.
So, Doctor, shouldn't the CBN have used these said POS operators? I mean, isn't it possible for them to do some sort of registration and documentation of some of these POS operators, you know, to ease access to this cash? When you have them registered at the commercial banks, these commercial banks can then give them the new notes in bulk. That way, you know, they can go to their various localities and communities and help do these exchanges in representation of these banks
instead of the CBN going directly.
Don't you think this would help?
It would have helped, but essentially, you see, withdrawing the old Naira note should be a gradual process. You know, it's not something that should be done overnight. If you rush it, Nigerians will lose. And every Nigerian that has a Naira now labored for that money. You know, labored for that Naira. So if you now say, oh, well, we're giving you so deadline, my bank did not, it's the business between you and your bank, not the CBN is not concerned, you're going to lose so much. Nigerians will lose. So I'm advocating, like Zulum has advocated, that there has to be an extension. And we call on the National Assembly and other stakeholders to prevail on the CBN to extend this deadline. If not, millions of Nigerians will lose what they have earned in Naira.
All right, now let's take a look at some other stories. This morning, we are also hearing about a possible flood. The federal government is forecasting that there's likely to be fresh flooding in Plateau, Bayelsa, and others. And this is as they also review new figures regarding the 2022 flood, that 662 people were killed in that flood, 2.4 million people were disabled. And we are also seeing NIMED talk about NIMED recovering, digitizing 130-year-old weather data. So, I mean, put the stories together. What should we be expecting in the coming days as regards disaster as such as the floods?
Well, there's what we say in the church. You say okay, let me not go into. You see, we have been experiencing flood, you know, and most times NIMED will predict that this will happen, and then we now notice that people are left to their fate. You know, over the years, you know, I remember the 2012 flood. After the flood, what the federal government did then was to say, okay, they will have to put in place measures that will prevent a recurrence. And that meant building a dam, a huge dam along that waterway. The dam that can conserve water, which can now be used for other purposes. Example, dry season farming. You know, I remember Jonathan, you know, when he was in government, talked about that. And we heard about dredging of the River Niger, you know, and a lot of money was pumped into the dredging of River Niger. And up till now, I mean, last year was a decade after, these things didn't happen. You know, you see, the flood in Lokoja last year shouldn't have happened if the River Niger were properly dredged. Even when you talk about the river over, the Bayelsa has been over. If the dam that was projected had been built, that wouldn't have happened. You know, we know that these are issues. We know that these are problems that will occur. You see, and I've not looked at the 2023 budget closely, but I don't know what measures are put in place. I don't know the plans in the budget, you know, to ensure that flooding is dealt with. Because flooding will not go away. You understand? There will continue to be flood in Nigeria. And if we do nothing about it, if we don't dredge the rivers, if we don't build dams to conserve the water and to use it for other purposes, if the way we we build our cities, you know, is such that there are no proper drainages.
It doesn't seem like any of the top 4 presidential candidates is talking about this, really.
Sincerely, my concern, I think a student was raising an issue it was in the university when Kwankwaso went there, and he was saying that, look, there's issue of climate change. Nobody is talking about climate change. Nobody is talking about, flood. I think the student mentioned this. Nobody is talking about flooding. And this is an issue. If you know, some communities have been washed away. You understand? Some of them, they lost everything, and nobody cares for them. And then we are going to experience another one.
So we need to go beyond this prediction.
Yes, it's not about predicting. We want to see, deliberate steps being taken by government to prevent people from suffering again. Because I'm thinking that the low-hanging thing to do is to dredge River Niger. If you dredge the River Niger, you see, it means that it will have more depth, and then water will flow. You know, but if it is just there at the surface, you have sand cover the whole place, and the communities will be swept away. And that is what we've experienced for over a decade now. But we are not taking steps. We are just talking about, it will happen, then it will happen. So there's no profit in the prediction.
Okay, so yesterday, passengers were stranded at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport due to, an unexpected strike by the Nigerian Airlines handling company, NACO. So what would you say? First of all, this is a revisit to the aviation industry. First, we had the issue of aviation fuel, and it caused a hike in the price of airfares, and now we're having, this unexpectedly. How would you react to that?
Sincerely, I think it's a big embarrassment, because an airline, the aviation workers shouldn't be seen to be going on strike.
The flight was made to travel back to the UK yesterday.
Yes, so it shouldn't. It's not the kind of thing that should happen in our country, in Nigeria, because the authorities, they knew, maybe they had been given a notice that, look, we are going on strike if you don't do this. And I was thinking that, those are the management of NACO and other, agencies who are related to NACO. They ought to have maybe, call the union workers, to a round table and say, look, these are the issues. You need a salary increment. Well, it's not something we can afford now, but this is what we can afford. You see, if you are realistic in negotiating with the labor union, they will understand. They won't go on strike. But this idea of allowing labor unions to go on strike every time they threaten to go on strike.
I was going to ask that question. Why does it have to get to the point of industrial action for, the government to notice the plight or the complaints or the yearnings of these workers? We've seen it time and time again with the Academic Staff Union of Universities. We've seen it with polytechnics and the likes of that. Why does it have to get to industrial action and get into national embarrassment before the government takes?
I think that has to do with poor planning. For instance, you see, most times when labor unions go on strike, it's usually because they will have had an agreement with either the government or the management of the institution that, look, this is going to happen by so and so date. Then we now discover that the management will not do what it ought to do. For instance, academic staff union should not go on strike if government had, factored in all the agreement they have reached with ASU in the annual budget. Now, but you have an annual budget that, it's usually a deficit budget now. We are now used to deficit budget. Yet, all the things that ASU has talked about, most of them legitimate. I think if you are not a lecturer, if you never lecture, you will not understand, how ASU feels. Most of them are legitimate, and government will just ignore it and say, well, they are poor teachers.
So, sir, then, is it lack of poor planning or lack of political will?
Well, I think it's planning. It has to do with planning, because you have to budget. You have to make the budget. You have to include, the salary increment in the budget. which will be approved by the federal government, is by the National Assembly at the time. So if it is not done, it means that there's no proper planning. Because the budget process is that, you see, you have to, take into account what the obligations are when you are submitting whatever is the budget of your agency to the budget office. So if you ignored your agreement with the labor union or the labor union in your organization, if you ignore that agreement, it means that you didn't plan properly. Maybe not exactly political will, but it is poor planning, poor budgeting process. I think those are. But what I'm saying that aviation workers should not go on strike, because it is not just about flying. It is about the image of your country. If anybody is coming to Nigeria, maybe to do business, I hear that aviation workers are on strike. Even if it is once that is disappointed, the next time you ask him to come to Nigeria to come and do investment, you say no, the aviation workers are always going on strike. They will not even bother to find out whether, it was only once in a century. You say no, they're always going on. The last time I wanted to go to Nigeria to do this business, the aviation workers was, I don't want to be stranded in that country. Yeah. You understand?
Well, all right. Well, unfortunately, we have to end the discussion at this point. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak and sharing your perspective with us.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Theophilus Abba is the director of the Daily Trust Foundation. He is a reviewer for today. We'll take a short break, and then when we return, top of the hour will be headlines again.
When a situation where you find that they look like the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that.
TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Good morning, Nigeria. It is the top of the hour, 8 a.m. and a beautiful day in the capital city. You're watching Daybreak on Trust TV, and it promises to be an educative, informative and enlightening program. I am Sagir Ibrahim.
And I am Ayuba Ilya. If you're just joining us, well, we've gone past almost an hour into the show. And now we'll be taking the headlines again for you who is just joining the show. The first one, passengers stranded at Lagos International Airport as NACO embarks on strike.
And also 2 million displaced by 2022 flood disaster. That's according to NEMA.
Frank Lampard sacked as Everton manager.
And to details now, the Nigerian Aviation Handling Company PLC, NACO, has embarked on a strike over salary increment grounding international flights at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport on Monday. In a viral video, several passengers were stranded at the international airport, moving about helplessly with their luggage. The NACO staff members were said to have walked out of the international airport in the early hours of Monday, saying they were on strike. The development grounded both arrival and departure flight schedules, leaving travelers frustrated as no prior communication was sent to passengers on the strike. Reacting to the development in a tweet, Oluwatosin Oladende, Chief Executive Officer CEO of Money Africa, said, "Airlines ground handlers on strike at Lagos Airport. No departure check-in and no arrival or flights for now, departing passengers stranded." NACO provides ground handling, passenger services and other services to several international airlines including Air France KLM, Qatar Airways, Ethiopian Airlines, Delta Airlines, Virgin Atlantic and Turkish Air.
The Director General of the National Emergency Management Agency, Mustafa Ahmed, says that 2,430,445 people were displaced by the 2022 flood disaster that ravaged different parts of the country. He said this at the opening of a one-week strategic executive course for Nigeria emergency management stakeholders on Monday in Abuja. Ahmed said that the capacity building training was expedient at a time when the country was recovering from the impacts of the 2022 flood disaster. He added that the training, which would afford the participants an opportunity to share their experiences, will also provide an opportunity for them to develop holistic approaches to disaster and crisis management in the country.
And to sports now, relegation threatened Everton have sacked manager Frank Lampard after less than a year in charge of the Goodison Park club, British media reported on Monday. The former Chelsea boss was appointed to replace Rafael Benitez in January 2022, but leaves with the side 19th in the table, level on points with bottom club Southampton. In a sign of the turmoil enveloping Everton, club directors were earlier this month ordered to stay away from Goodison Park due to perceived security risks. Everton fell with damaging 2-0 defeat at fellow strugglers West Ham on Saturday, a 9th loss in their past 12 Premier League matches.
Now to some packages that we have lined up here. A few days to the 29 January deadline for the collection of permanent voter cards. The distribution is moving smoothly in Gombe State. Now, the Ibrahim Ismail reports that despite an enlightenment campaign by the Independent National Electoral Commission, many Nigerians are not aware of where to collect their PVCs.
Sunday, the 29th January is the last day for the collection of PVCs. It was initially scheduled to end on January 22nd. But few days to Sunday, it appears some Nigerians in Gombe are not aware of the procedures to get their cards. At a time when the collection process is at ward level, some residents are visiting the local government office of INEC.
And I'm just coming, I saw so many people. I don't even understand what is happening. But from my findings, I was able to get some information. Most people that are here for the ad hoc staff movements. So I'm still looking around to see the process for the collection.
I escorted with my wife here so that she will also collect her own. Because we were here the same day, I picked my own. So they told her that her own will be ready in 2 weeks' time. So here we are now.
A resident in Shamaki Ward, Gombe said INEC officials are very punctual at the card pickup point, but the turnout is very low, which can be attributed to ignorance of the collection point. Others attempt to collect by proxy. People should endeavor to collect their PVCs to vote who they want. Without PVC, you don't have the right to raise your voice against bad governance. But with your card, you do have a voice. For Nigerians to exercise their franchise in the 2023 general elections, they must have their permanent voter cards. From Gombe, Ibrahim Ismail reporting for Trust TV.
Also, Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi has promised to build a new Nigeria if elected in February. Peter Obi was addressing a mammoth crowd during his campaign rally at the Muhammadu Diko Stadium in Katsina. Take a look.
Peter Obi promises people of Katsina that his administration will, among other programs, introduce policies and programs that will rejuvenate agriculture and solid minerals development. The presidential candidate promised to reopen the nation's land borders to reignite economic activities. The vice presidential candidate Yusuf Baba Ahmad said Labour Party is the only platform that can address numerous challenges retarding the nation's growth. Katsina is a citadel of education. The Labour Party will adopt policies that will ensure free education for all. All sectors of the state economy will be resuscitated and peace will be restored to Katsina and the Northwest region. Once you vote Labour Party, all your challenges will be history. The governorship candidate and other flag bearers from Katsina State expressed optimism that the party will win the elections. The party is for all of us, and let me categorically state here that our candidates in the Labour Party will never let you down. Katsina State has been endowed with good leaders who have contributed towards the development of Nigeria. Please, don't let that get out of your hand. Vote Labour Party from top to bottom. Abdullahi Ismayamadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
President Muhammadu Buhari and the All Progressives Congress presidential candidate could not address the hundreds of party supporters that gathered at the Abubakar Tafawa stadium in Bauchi during a campaign rally in the state. The rally, however, witnessed a large turnout of party loyalists from Bauchi. Adamu Imam reports that technical hitch and malfunction of the public address system prevented the duo from addressing the crowd.
The All Progressives Congress presidential campaign rally witnessed a large number of party stalwarts and supporters who turned up to register their support for the presidential candidate of the party, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in his quest to become the next president of the country. National Chairman of the party, Abdullahi Adamu, DG Campaign Simon Lalon, and Chairman Progressives Governors Forum Atiku Bagudu of Kebbi State all drummed support for candidate of the party at all levels. Your performance and excellent policies have never been seen before. Major policies that have touched the lives of common man are the reasons this crowd is gathered here to support you and your government. By God's grace, we shall emulate you and apply what we learned during your administration to stem the tide of insecurity in our country. If they give us the mandate by the grace of God, we shall do even better than where we are now. Some supporters of the APC presidential candidate expressed hope that the party will emerge victorious at all levels.
For us, Well, the way I see the people of Bauchi, honestly, I'm so happy. I'm so, we pray for Almighty Allah. Allah should give us Aturubu as a president, inshallah. We pray for Almighty Allah.
It's a communication error. So this thing will be happen anytime, anywhere. So what I only call the people that came to this gathering, they should be calm and wait for 25th February to vote for our leaders as well as Senator Kashim Shettima.
We urge women to come out en masse to vote the APC from top to bottom. That is what we need to do if we have to get it right.
Dignitaries from the National Assembly and former governors from the Northeast region graced the event and pledged their support for the party. Adam Imam, Trust TV News, Bauchi.
And students of the University of Abuja have on Monday expressed mixed feelings over their engagement with the presidential candidate of the New Nigeria People's Party, Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, on his agenda for the country. A cross-section of the students who spoke to Trust TV, Shafiu Suleiman, shortly after the interface, expressed both satisfaction and reservations, especially on the implementation of his policy initiatives. Take a look.
The second engagement series of the University of Abuja with presidential candidates took place right behind me here. And of course, the students had an opportunity to interact freely with the NNPP presidential candidate, Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, who rolled out, his plans for the education sector and other sectors of importance to Nigeria ahead of the election, which is scheduled to hold next month. It is left for the students now to decide as to where the pendulum will swing, looking at the direction and inputs and, of course, understanding of the issues by the various candidates that will be engaging them ahead of the election.
So if he's to stick by what he promised us, I think he has his blueprints actually going to create a bright future for Nigeria. That is, if he's not going to recycle the normal status quo of other political candidates. If he stick by what he's saying, Nigeria will actually be better than it is now. So we are just hoping.
The past elections, the presidents too, the candidates, when they were candidates, they were always saying all these things: electricity, poverty, education. But yet, and once they acquire power, this problem keep repeating itself. That's just what I said.
I was expecting him to hammer on what's on climate change. He never mentioned anything on climate change. But I believe that we have been having series of disasters like flooding and other disasters. So I was expecting him to also talk on that. So we see his plan and what he has so we can mitigate all those problems we've had.
What he said made a lot of sense, but I cannot say that I have experienced or witnessed some of the works he did educationally, but I feel like there's a chance that he's a very good leader.
He was able to identify the major challenges that Nigeria as a society is facing, and like it is popularly said, being able to identify your problem is a first step towards solving such problems.
Engagements like this, some will say, especially in a political environment, is very key to shaping the opinions, if you like, of the critical stakeholders in the nation's electoral process. Shafiu Suleiman, Trust TV News, Abuja.
All right. Now, residents of Lambar Rimi, where the 10 megawatt windmill electricity project is sited in Katsina State, have lamented the slow pace of work on the project. The windmill electricity power project was initiated and started by the President Umaru Yar'Adua administration to provide 10 megawatts of electricity to Katsina to complement the national grid. Abdullahi Yamadi reports that several unfulfilled promises were made to the people of Katsina State on completion and commissioning of the power project by successive administrations. Take a look.
Residents of the community are afraid that another disappointment looms if the project is not completed at the end of the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari in the next couple of months. Even on the 8th of January 2022, The Minister of Power, Engineer Abubakar Aliu, added to numerous assurances by the Buhari-led federal government that the project will be commissioned before the end of its tenure.
There are small things that have been left by the contractor, which we urge them to complete, and this is one of the reasons that I am here to come and see whether they have done them. Like the SCADA, they have brought it, and the other yard that we have been to, the Liafa yard, we have gone there to see the meters that they have installed and other things. Just the icing on the cake to complete the project.
However, residents are now in doubt whether the remaining month of the Buhari administration will make any difference. They also lament the failed promises of successive governments that pledged to complete and put the project to use. We have been seeing several government delegations coming here and promising the commissioning of the project. Several ministers had promised that the project will be completed within the space of 2 weeks since 2013, but up till now, nothing was done.
When the
Buhari administration came to power in 2015, all Katsina residents thought their dream will come true. However, the reverse is the case. Our only hope is for the president to remember some of his promises to us and fulfill them.
Muna roƙon kuma gwamnati cewar muna roƙon ta dama a taimaka wannan aikin a ci gaba da yin shi har a samu damar buɗe wannan wuri.
Wannan aiki an yi shi to mu kuma har yanzu dai ba wani ci gaba.
I call on President Muhammadu Buhari to direct a forensic auditing of all the facilities at the project site, because many of us are seeing suspicious movements in and around the project site.
Tun da aka hada ta, ko shugaban kasa ko so ɗaya bai taɓa zuwa ba.
Residents here are anxious to see if this project will be commissioned before the Buhari administration winds up on 29th May this year. Abdullahi Ismayamadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
Okay, now following the January 31st, 2023 deadline set by the Central Bank of Nigeria to stop the use of the old 1,500 and 200 naira notes as legal tender, residents of Birni Yero in Igabi local government area of Kaduna State have started rejecting the old notes during business transactions. Despite the non-availability of the new notes, the residents said they are planning to shut down their business within the week to avoid loss, as people in the villages are rejecting the old Naira note. Have a look at this report.
Birninyero is a village located along Kaduna Zaria Road, approximately 31 kilometers from Kaduna metropolis. The occupation of the residents is farming, while some engage in buying and selling of agricultural produce. With the 31st January deadline to stop transactions using the old 1,500 and 200 naira notes just around the corner, the residents are lamenting the scarcity of the redesigned naira notes in the villages. Since the introduction of the redesigned naira notes, it was 2 days ago that I saw one of the notes. After that, I haven't seen it again. I saw them once, but I haven't seen them again. I went to the bank, but I could not get new notes, and most of our customers don't have bank accounts. They deal with cash, and they are also rejecting the old notes. Some of the residents said most people in the area, especially farmers, have no bank account to deposit the old naira notes into. Hence, they are afraid of losing their money. I don't have a bank account, so it is almost a certainty that I will lose money. I leave everything in the hands of God. People have started rejecting the money, and people don't patronize the market as well. Therefore, on Wednesday, we will shut down our businesses to avoid further losses. The All Norths are here with me. I tried to buy farm produce from a farmer, but he rejected them. In Kaduna Metropolis, residents lamented the situation as commercial banks and ATMs are still dispensing the All Naira notes. Meanwhile, the Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN) at a public sensitization assured that the redesigned Naira notes are available at ATMs and maintained that those who fail to deposit their own notes into banks stand to lose their money.
Stand to lose their money, and we don't want them to lose their money, and that is why we have come out to educate them that they should go to the banks, deposit their money in the banks, and if they want this new money, they should go to their ATMs and withdraw this money.
Well, we have already policies on ground, and we are going to apply those extant rules on them. But we have been in touch with many of the managing directors of the banks. Any ATM that we visit and we discover that they are not complying, we normally call the managing directors straight away so that they should talk to the branch.
Residents of Birninyero village are calling on the Central Bank of Nigeria to extend the deadline in order to enable them get rid of all Naira notes. Bello Musa, Trust TV News, Kaduna.
All right, now time for us to take a short break, and then when we return, we'll take a look at other discussions on the program. Join us again.
That's great.
All right, thank you for staying with us. If you are just joining, you're watching Daybreak on Trust Television. Time for us to take a look at the next discussion on the program. It's about a national emergency, health emergency that we are dealing with now. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control has said that the death toll from the diphtheria disease across the country has hit 34. The NCDC in its official website on Sunday said that the deaths were recorded between December 2022 and early January. Now, Lagos, Kano, Yobe, and Osun State have reported cases of the disease. In Kano State, identified cases have risen from 25 to 100 in less than 2 weeks. Now, 3 persons in 13 local government areas of the state have also died. Now, the agency blamed the increase in the infection and resurgence on low vaccination coverage across the country. To get more perspectives and understanding on this illness, we have joining us 2 medical doctors, Dr. Usman Najib, who joins us via Zoom from Kano, that appears as the epicenter of the disease. We'll be talking about more of that, and then hopefully having Dr. Agbo Ebuta join us much later on the program. Now, thank you so much, Dr. Usman, for joining us on the program this morning.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I hope Abuja is fine.
All right. Now, well, to better understand exactly what we are dealing with, can you talk to us about what this diphtheria outbreak is all about, really?
Diphtheria is a very serious disease. It is a disease that affects the nose, throat, and sometimes the skin. The epidemic we are having now is more of the respiratory type. That's people having the respiratory component of the disease. And the reason why it is a very serious one because a lot of people are vulnerable because of the issue of vaccination and other and the weather and other things. So it's a serious one, and it's something that is surprising, honestly, because for years diphtheria is something that we had been living with it, of course, and we were able to successfully contain it. But recently with the spike and the number of cases, within 2 weeks, more than 100 cases were identified, and many, according to the NCDC, many cases are still coming up.
Okay, so doctor, we have an extra 3 persons dying, in 13 local government areas of Kano State. So the question now, the COVID-19 has flu-like symptoms, and from what I've read so far about diphtheria, it also comes, with flu-like symptoms. So I want to know, for the millions of Nigerians out there who are guilty of self-medications, what steps do they take, or how do they know that this is different, from the regular flu that they used to have, to ensure them take extra steps to, go to medical facilities to seek medical attention?
Like you said, diphtheria shares some symptoms similar to COVID-19 and other flu-like symptoms. For instance, one comes down with fever, which is a low-grade fever, and then there is cough, excessive cough, and then there is a runny nose, and then red eyes, that's conjunctivitis. And apart from that, there's issue with the voice. So there's this hoarse voice that most of the people come down with, and then in extreme cases, there is neck swelling. That's the neck will be swelled, and in some cases, that's what we call a pseudomembrane. That is a whitish patch appearing in the mouth around the tonsils. So those are some of the symptoms and the signs that differentiate diphtheria from your normal flu-like symptoms. So the neck swelling, the conjunctivitis, that is the red eyes, and the white patches, which is the pseudomembrane, differentiate diphtheria from the normal flu-like symptoms. But the most essential thing is with this epidemic now, if someone is experiencing any of these symptoms, it's advisable that one should visit the closest health facility so that the health personnel there can ascertain what exactly is wrong with the person.
Okay, so doctor, talking about vaccination now, how has the vaccination process been in the state, saying that it is the epicenter of, the diphtheria disease?
Well, you see, to be honest, for the diphtheria vaccination in if you look at the broad, maybe the manifestation and the implementation of the vaccination, we have a serious issue with that. You see, from the results, the cases we are having, all of the children that came down with diphtheria were unvaccinated children. That's just the reality. And the vaccination for diphtheria is part of the expanded immunization program, where a child is given the vaccine, part of what we call a pentavalent vaccine. That's a vaccine against protecting the child against 5 diseases at the 6th, 10th, and 14th week of life. And then for the adult, ideally, we should be taking booster dose at a 10-year interval. But the reality is, with the attitude of people, many children are unvaccinated. According to the NCDC, they say that only 53% of children were vaccinated. But the reality is, for those places where we have the active cases, the vaccination rate is less than that. So, and that's the reason why we are seeing this spike. So, if people are not vaccinated, because the vaccine protects the child against the infection. So, if children are not vaccinated, then we're going to continue to see this spike in the number of cases.
All right, doctor, let's talk about awareness, of this disease among the people. How informed are people about this, and what do we need to do now speedily to ensure that people are well informed about this, and possibly the causes and all that?
For the bacterium, for the diphtheria, like as we said, it's caused by a bacterium, which is Corynebacterium diphtheriae. That's what causes it. And one of the risk factors is the age. Children are more likely to be infected with the disease. And another thing is issue of sanitation, the proper hand hygiene and others. Because it's like we say, it's a respiratory disease, so it's disseminated through more like coughing, sneezing, and other things, through aerosols. So when you have people in a crowded location and with someone sneezing or coughing, the likelihood of infecting many people is very high. Let me tell you a case of a woman that we're discussing with my colleague yesterday. She had 4 children. 3 of them are dead from diphtheria. So this is to show you how serious the thing is. Once someone comes down with it, if action is not taken promptly and the right action is not taken, the likelihood of other people that are in close contact with the person coming down with the diphtheria is very high. So that is the reason why we're encouraging isolation. If someone suspects that he or she has that symptoms, the person should isolate himself and reach out to the proper health authority. That will go a long way in limiting the number of cases and in decreasing the fatality rate of this disease. And the joy is diphtheria is something that is curable. It can be cured. So with the right awareness and with the timely diagnosis, timely reporting to the facility or healthcare providers, we will be able to overcome it.
Should we be rethinking our ban on or I would say the lifting of the safety precautions, the COVID-19 safety protocols that we had in place earlier that now has been lifted? Should we be reconsidering going back to that now with this outbreak?
Well, to be honest, diphtheria is not as serious as COVID-19, as we all know, but it's something that's very serious, and that's the reason why we are encouraging people to use their face masks. This is a respiratory disease, like we said. It's spread through aerosols. So when someone just sneezes, or maybe you are in contact with someone, because you cannot know someone who has diphtheria by just merely looking at the person. Someone may come down coughing or sneezing, and then you may contact the disease. So the best way is use your face mask. At least it will help. And then try as much as you can to do the proper hygiene. So I won't encourage going back to the COVID-19 days, because it will create more chaos, and then with the reality, I think it's not the best option for us now. What we should be focusing on is finding the cases, doing contact tracing, creating as much awareness as we can, reaching out to people, vaccinating people, encouraging people to take the vaccine. I think that is the approach for us now.
Okay, so doctor, you mentioned earlier in your conversation that around 53% of people have been vaccinated in Kano State, which leaves around 47% vaccinated. So if you put this into perspective, and the fact that I would also like to ask that it affects at some point the nervous system. Don't you think now is the right time for the government to swing into action? That is one. And secondly, have you seen any move to that effect? I'm talking about the provision of vaccines for more people to get vaccination, an increase in awareness, because of course we would not like to have a pandemic situation on our hands.
Well, I will commend the government. Our health system honestly have been very resilient. We saw it with the COVID-19 and other epidemics that have been coming up. We saw how the European system and other advanced countries systems collapsed, but yet ours was resilient, because maybe more or less because we are used to working in a resource restricted areas, and then maybe the immunity of our people. But from the government, I would think the government is doing well. There is adequate awareness. For instance, in Kano, radio jingles, a lot of things, a lot of media hype, a lot of contact tracing is going on. But that is not enough. The government should also up its game, especially with the issue of vaccination. When you have 47% or more of eligible people that are supposed to have get the vaccine are not vaccinated, then you are putting the whole population at risk, because just by having the vaccine, most people, okay, let me tell you this. You see, this vaccine is supposed to be taken 3 times. Most people just take a dose. So if someone just take a dose and then he's counted among the people that were vaccinated, and if 47% of people are not vaccinated, then what it means is that someone with just a dose is also not covered. So that means many people are not vaccinated.
And that's
the government should do more.
Yes. And that's why I'm going back to the issue of awareness. Are people even aware of this vaccination, and what should they be doing? Where should they go to get these vaccinations?
The vaccination, people are aware of the vaccination, but you have to look at the context and people. For instance, now, I don't want to mention the name of the locality where most of the cases are coming, but this is a locality that is known for its non-compliance with vaccinations. They don't believe in vaccinations. They don't. So they hardly go to the hospital. The vaccines are there, but they don't. So, and then that's the reason why we're having this excessive number of cases. There are areas where the case is zero, like this, because most of the children in those areas are vaccinated. So we need to do more. Instead of waiting for for people to go to the hospital, I think it's time for the government to reach out to these people, to go to their localities, to their homes, and vaccinate the children and people that are right for the vaccination.
Okay, so doctor, in the off chance that people are not yet vaccinated and unfortunately contract this disease, I mean, it would mean that they would have to pay out of pocket to get palliative drugs. So how effective, number one, is this palliative drugs as opposed to getting vaccinated, and also how expensive it is? Because in most of these communities we have people who basically struggle to feed from hand to mouth.
Well, we know out-of-pocket payment for health services is a very costly approach, and treatment for Corynebacterium diphtheria is a bit expensive, honestly, depending on the like you said, the personality involved, and that's the reason why we are always encouraging people to go for the vaccine. and other things. And if someone comes down with the bacteria, with the infection, simply go to the hospital. When you go to the hospital, there are measures put in place to support someone. And the thing is, we are lucky that a lot of antibiotics that we have can cure diphtheria. So we are lucky. There are some diseases that are only susceptible to certain antibiotics. And most of the antibiotics sometimes are very costly. But in the case of coronary bacterium diphtheria, there are a lot of options available. But like we said, it's a very costly one, and it also depends on the stage at which someone reports to the hospital. If it's at the very severe stage, then the cost will be something somehow outrageous, to be honest.
All right, Doctor, just one question, please. We are in an election season. In about a few weeks' time, we'll be going to general polls and campaigns are ongoing. What would be your advisory? Should we be worried about the spread of this disease as a result of these activities, political activities?
Of course, with overcrowding and the weather, this is the time for COVID-19. Flu and other flu-like diseases. Anything that has to do with the respiratory system, this is the season. This is the time for it. So, with the campaign and other political activities going on, that means it's something that you will see a lot of people in crowded places. A lot of people in very crowded places. So, what we advise is people should be very vigilant. We should try as much as we can to use our face masks. We should take the vaccine, if we are unvaccinated, and we should try to create that awareness among people so that they will know that it's very important to take responsibility to ensure proper hygiene and other sanitary measures.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us on this program. Dr. Usman Najib, medical doctor, joining us from Kano via Zoom. We do appreciate. We look forward to having you join us again on the show.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Now, we'll take a short break now, and then when we return, we'll take a look at other issues on the program. Join us again.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence. Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement, terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media. Before you broadcast that false message, think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household on safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dsspr@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
Well, welcome back. You're watching Daybreak on Trust TV. Moving on to other issues now. After a series of poor performance, Frank Lampard was on Monday relieved of his position as manager of the Everton Football Club. The Toffees lost 9 of their last 12 games. Trust TV sports presenter Adeni Ajishafe joins us to give us more details. Good morning, Mr. Adoni.
Yeah, good to have you. Have me on the show, rather.
Okay.
I'm already swapping.
Indeed. So help us make sense out of you know, the situation. Was it a lack of investment? Was it poor management? What exactly is the issue?
Well, I think Everton really, from the way it is right now, coupled with what has actually happened to Lampard, to the team and everything, I think it's involved actually everyone. Lampard himself, the players, the coaching crew, the fans, the owner, the majority owner now, Fahad Moshiri. The reason why I'm saying is it involved everyone is the fact that you check for the past like 5 or 6 managers that have been appointed by Everton, from Roberto Martinez to Allardyce to Rafa Benitez to Silva, to in fact everyone that has actually come to Everton has not actually had it easy. It has been the same way they left, the same way Lampard is going. And what is happening to Everton? Is it that Goodison Park is changing? That's the name of their home. What is happening that there has never been any coach or manager that has spent 2 full years, seasons for the past 5, let's say since Roberto Martinez, up till now. You don't spend 2 seasons. You don't. Lampard came January 2022, right? And now this is January 2023. How many matches? 44 matches. You managed to win 12. He lost how many? A lot. And you look at
there are those who are feeling like this inconsistency is also impacting negatively on the players, the way they play and the rest of them. Some say, well, when you have different coaches at different times, bringing in different players coming together, without them bonding and really having to work together as a team, and all that is affecting how.
That's why I said it's involved everyone at Everton. The players, they have themselves to blame. The coaching crew. Lampard came with his guys. Each coach or manager will come with his own technical crew. They're like, So, but from the way it is right now, if you recall, I remember one of those markets that they wanted to play, that even the owners were scared to come to Goodison Park because of they said they needed security. They were afraid that the fans were becoming too aggressive. They were really revolting, showing they were not hiding it anymore. They were not happy because if you check the history of Everton now, they've not won any trophy for a very long time, and now they couldn't wait anymore. They are unhappy. Yes, it happens to every club. When they are waiting for you to win something, you're not doing well. In fact, from the way it is, even if they bring the so-called Ancelotti that Fahad Moshiri loves so much, I doubt if he can turn this around right now in Everton. Now, for Lampard's case, Lampard, with all due respect to him for what he has achieved in football as a player, like the way I see Lampard, I'm not trying to write him off, but I think Lampard will be more, maybe he has not been able to get his magic wand with clubs. He was in Derby County, he was in Chelsea, and this is Everton. The 3rd time he's been sacked.
So this is the issue, right? Is it a Lampard issue or more like ex-England players issue? I'm asking this because we've had a couple of them who have had stints in coaching and have not been successful. We have the Neville brothers, we have Paul Scholes, we have a couple of others who have tried out coaching and have not been successful. So
maybe in England they know how to hype their players. You understand?
Okay, so
to some extent, check EPL. How many English coaches or managers have won the EPL? How many?
So all of this is a matter of hype.
As you are from England, right? Okay, agreed. Now you look at the player, the way the English press talk about their players, and those players now by the time they retire, they want to be manager. Look at Wayne Rooney, look at Gary Neville. Now we're talking Lampard, John Terry. Most of these guys, they still play football.
But when you started off talking about this, you try to summarize the problem as everyone should be blamed for this.
Everyone.
It's not just about Lampard. But it looks more that the conversations are about Lampard's in
for example, what offense have the fans committed?
Let me actually explain this. Maybe you guys should just give me time to explain this. Why I say it involves everyone. You know, the fans, I know they are hungry for glory. They want to see a cup being lifted by these players. But it's not coming. Well, if you look at how some clubs actually wait their fans, they understand the fact that, yes, it's not easy to play football. It's not easy. And when it's not coming, it doesn't mean you begin to get so kind of aggressive that people will be scared. The owners couldn't come to this because they're scared that if they come, they could be attacked. And then I remember that there was a time they even attacked Gordon. They were abusing him and all that. Such attitude could actually demoralize players. You understand? When you are just being attacked fully, physically, by being told that you are not doing well, it can make you feel, well, what do I need to do now? You understand? So the fans need to at least they need to take it cool a bit. Then the owners, that impatience of not even believing, and after they are not even up to 2 years before they were burned out. I've mentioned names, right? And it's not as if these coaches, it's not as if they don't know their onions. We know what Rafa Benitez did when he was in Liverpool and all of that. Even Carlo Ancelotti when he was around. But it's high time they should be giving coaches that trust. Okay, let's see what he can do. Let's believe in him. Let's support him. Okay. If you notice, Moshiri has not really hidden his. I'm not so confident with this guy from day one. In fact, Lampard should have been sacked even before yesterday. Wow. Even before yesterday. But one way or the other, okay, let's hope, let's wait, let's see. But really, now...
But you just said that the owners need to be a bit more patient with the players, with the coaches.
If you look at it, Lampard himself, it's not as if he doesn't know what he wants to do. But at times, the dressing room also contributes. If you notice, there was a time he had issue with Abdoulaye Doucouré. The players were actually revolting also. That's why the players, they have themselves to be blamed too. Because if you look at them, they too need to understand, okay, this is our boss. No matter what's happening, we need to play like a team. Let me cite an example. Yesterday, Tottenham Hotspur beat Fulham. Out of what? Harry Kane said the team talked. They had time to talk together. They talked. They agreed that we are not going to lose this match. Now, the players themselves, okay, we want to play. We've seen where players play for coach. That we won't allow this to be sacked. We'll do our best to make sure we win for this man. Now, Doucouré facing Lampard, having issues with him, yet we know it happens in football where players will not be happy with maybe the way the coaches, the pattern and all that. But this one, all of you are failing, not just Lampard. This is called Everton. Right. Everton, not Lampard or
So it's not
players.
fair then for him to be the one to take the bullet.
Whenever a club is not doing well, the manager has to bear it.
Well, I wish we had more time to discuss more of this. Mr. Adeni Adishafe, thank you so much for joining us on the program. And of course, we wish Frank Lampard all the best in his future endeavors. That's the much we can take on Daybreak this morning. And as always, I'm your host, Sagir Ibrahim. Thank you for watching.
And I am Ayuba Ile. In case you've missed, you can always catch up across all our social media platforms and also on our YouTube live stream. Bye for now.